Just as we say,
and
the
the
leopard nose!
The leopard nose.
I love it! TJ, this is the best. This is my favorite day of Hearthstone, I think, in the past year.
At least this match.
Yeah.
That's not too bad of a curve, and Maryland are playing Zoo.
Yeah, this is great. Welcome back, Hearthstone. I love it. Turn 1 Leopard Gnome, I don't think is a start that Maryland was necessarily expecting to see, but I think at the same time when they see it, they're not necessarily surprised because of what Trinity brought in game number 1. So this list, it's a very different kind of Druid deck. It was meant to get on the board running and follow up with a Fel Reaver, which is when your opponents are playing quite this aggressive, you have to use a lot of resources to take care of the early game because Druid can always punish you with Savage Roar.
Yeah.
And so because of that, the Fel Reaver was very often just sticking to the board. And because it was just sticking to the board, you know, 8 points of damage, who cares about how many cards you burn because your opponent's casting spells? You have an 8/8 for 5 mana.
Yeah. And there's a Fel Reaver too, so this is starting to look pretty scary for Maryland. They do get a really good start though, and with the Lance Carrier also in their deck, it seems like they're playing, you know, sort of, I don't want to say old school, but a style of Zoo deck that really thrives on getting super strong board initiative very early in the game. So
Trinity, I like this play too, taking care of the 4/4 right away. They had the option to keep or the Grove this 2/2, but then that Nerubian is just going to run over their 2/4. So they know that they're going to have to be fighting an efficiency battle for the early stages of this game. This is still a pretty difficult matchup for the Druid, almost any way that you slice it. And so that little bit of extra health on that body maybe helps them fight for the board just long enough they can do something about it. But Maryland, with Lance Carrier and with Abusive Sergeant in their hand, they continue to maintain just that little bit of initiative they need to try to take over this game. And so Trinity, I'm curious here, are these the kind of guys who go for the juggler, or are these the kind of guys who play safe? I think with last turn, they're probably just going to hero power.
Yeah. Based on their warrior deck, I think they're the kind of guys that go for the juggle. But
I think they're the kind of guys who are just going to play to their strength here. I mean, you take a look, that warrior deck, catching everyone off guard this week, I think totally great play. But in this situation, the Knife Juggler can be backbreaking, so why not protect him?
Yeah. And now they have double two of the claw. I mean, this is this damage is starting to ramp up, and Fel Reaver. Zoo is not usually a deck that has a direct answer to Fel Reaver. Sometimes they can power overwhelming. They do have a lot of things to buff their creatures, so they might be able to piece it together. But right now, unless they get a Doom Guard out of this Void Caller, then they don't have a way to deal with it.
Yeah, so Voidwalker first here. They don't want the Void Caller to be pulling that demon out of their hand. When it dies, it's going to pull a random demon out of your hand. So you want to play the ones that are less impactful on the board first to maximize your chance to really get something. So that Void Terror that's on the left side of their hand, that's just a 3-mana 3/3 minion. That's the one they do not want to get out of this Void Caller right now. Mal'Ganis isn't the best, but it will contest the Fel Reaver directly. So that one's not always so bad. But they have a ton of options in their hand of how they want to approach this turn. So you're going to see them take their time, really figure out what's going to maximize their chances to make this happen, and that's where their game plan is going to be right now. So to me, my instinct is Knife Juggler, Lance Carrier, Voidwalker, but it looks like they want to get a little bit more information and see what they can do afterwards. I'm curious exactly what they're thinking about when they make this play.
They played that phase for a second, which led me to believe that they might Void Terror. Try and push the damage, Void Terror. Oh, wow. So...
well, there's Mal'Ganis on the board, and they're going to just try to contest this this Fel Reaver as best they can, and even lifetime afterwards. So they're valuing the card advantage pretty much above all else in this situation. I mean, this is a tough spot for Trinity. They can take out this this Voidwalker, but it's a 5/5. It's going to leave your Fel Reaver at 3 health. And you're staring down at Mal'Ganis right now, and you don't have a way to kill it.
Yeah, and you're burning your cards. Well, the burn effect from Fel Reaver doesn't really matter until you get to the point where you're fatiguing. It doesn't matter until you add a card.
Here's the thing. Fel Reaver's burning cards from your deck. The idea behind this card is that the impact of this size of a minion at 5 mana will have done so much damage to your opponent that they don't have an opportunity to climb back at this point. I actually really like this in charge mode because now they're actually posturing quite a bit of damage here. So the cards that Maryland will burning can come into effect, but that's only if they get into a long game attrition battle, which is something that Warlocks fight very well because of their hero power. It allows them to draw an extra card every turn at the cost of 2 life. Now, while the Mal'Ganis is out, it doesn't cost you any life. It just costs you the mana. So that's kind of playing right in their hands. They foresaw this situation leading to a spot like this, and they want to make sure they get as much out of it as they possibly can.
Yeah, and if you look at it, Maryland can just play a Doomguard out of hand, and with the buff, it'll go up to, what, an 8-9? Or, sorry, 7-9? So they can actually take out the Fel Reaver without the Doomguard dying, and kill the Druid of the Claw, which, you know, sort of protects one of their creatures. Like, they can heal it.
They're going to leave that Fel Reaver on the board. Honestly, it's not that big of a threat right now. Almost any of these minions would challenge the other one directly because the Fel Reaver's there. So they want to force their opponent to the decision of trading here and just take the efficient ones while they can. Again, fighting that attrition battle and making sure they're staying ahead. And so far, that plan is working beautifully. Yeah,
really is.
You know, you look at this and you go, oh, it's 4 cards versus 4 cards. Well, Trinity's getting their deck burned away. So they're the ones actually having to race against the damage clock. And they're the ones having to answer the minions on the board right now. The deck that is dedicated to offense currently has to play defense.
Yeah. So Trinity here, they have a couple options. They can go with Druid of the Claw and then hero power down the Mal'Ganis to preserve their Fel Reaver and push 8 damage to face. But then again, they just have a Fel Reaver on board. It contests the Mal'Ganis, but they're still burning cards, which can be risky at this point when you've already burned so many.
Yeah, they're just going to go for sacrificing the Fel Reaver. I would venture to say it was a minor liability this game, not too much of a one. Really, the big story here is that if you go card for card with a Zoo deck, the fact that it's got the hero power to draw 2 extra cards is what sets you behind. Especially if you don't have the same kind of longevity that you have if you're, say, like a typical Druid deck, which has a lot of high endgame stuff. This one is filled with Knife Jumpers and Druid of the Saber and stuff that's very dedicated to the early game. So their average draw right now is significantly lower than what it would be in a traditional Druid deck.
All right, well, Maryland just going all in. They're okay with discarding the Implosion to have a strong board like this. And Trinity does draw into Savage Combatant. They can play their whole hand here, but they leave themselves susceptible to this Doomguard.
Yeah, I'm curious, actually, if playing your whole hand is better than just Savage Combatant and the Hero Power.
Hero Power?
Yeah, which I think the Hero Power is just a little bit better, considering that Maryland's going to feel committed to taking out the Savage Combatant. The fact that it's giving your Hero Power 2 extra attack while it's in play, that's a pretty darn big deal.
Yeah.
And so after Maryland takes out that Savage Combatant, you're looking at the refill of the Shade, using the Living Roots to deal the final 2 points of damage to that Doomguard, and then whatever you draw next. So the life total's pretty darn even here. It's really going to be a matter of whether or not Maryland's card economy can outmatch what Trinity College is going to throw at them. So this is still a pretty close game.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So they are going for the Shaded X Rama's plans. Oh, wow. Huh. This is really interesting to me.
Well, this was the play that I was thinking of initially, because those 1/1s can actually be kind of tough for 2 Warlocks to deal with. And they represent the ability to trade with the Doomguard next turn, or sometimes they represent the ability to just beat Savage or tokens.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. And with 2 minion buffs in hand, sure, they do have access to 11 damage right now, but their opponents are at just too high of a life total for that to be a realistic possibility. And if they're buffing that, wow, they still are trading. Interesting. And so now,
that's a good pickup.
Here's the thing. Maryland drew fairly dead that turn, and Trinity College drew one of the most resilient minions in the deck. Their position now suddenly looks favorable to me.
Yeah. And now that Shade's there, that Shade provides so much flexibility. You can keep it stealth and hope you draw into Savage, or if you do draw into Savage, you can keep it stealth to guarantee that second target. Or you can use it to trade up.
I mean, Voidwalker's not effective in this situation.
But think about it, they drew a lot of their powerful creatures.
Yeah, that does give them the ability to maybe start to hack into this board just a little bit. So there's the Pilot and Shredder trade.
Oh, wow.
4-3 is one of the...
Look at Trinity College is like, oh, that feels bad, man. Feels good for us.
A 4-4 is the only minion that can be larger than this. They got a 4-3 out of it.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be going their way right now, even despite what an almost disaster that Fel Reaver was.
Yeah, and this game has a completely different landscape now. Trinity College can clear the board, develop whatever threat they're going to go. Oh, man.
Doggy. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing, too. When you're playing against a Zoo deck, you have to be mindful of how many ways they have to buff their smaller minions.
Yeah.
Even though that these are big deal. It's a 2-1, it's a 1-3.
Got to respect it.
Yeah, you do have to respect it. And Druid can often suffer from this by just having smaller minions trade into larger ones. but they want even more card economy out of this. They're going to hang on to this swipe and make sure they can check the next turn as well. They have this one pretty easily checked, so I think it's a smart decision to hang on to their resources and try to make the most of everything they've got, because they've only got a few cards left.
Well, they also have lethal next turn on board.
Yeah.
Especially with a tap, and a Flame Hip is such a terrible draw at this stage. You cannot afford to take that 3 damage.
Dr. Boom's not enough.
Yeah, you play Flame Hip, you're just dead to board.
Do you power overwhelming a Boombot and try to pick off one of these minions? They're not going to. And so that swipe is going to end this game. TJ,
wow.
Trinity, 2 back-to-back aggressive decks. Maryland can't find a way to check that damage. We're taking a 2-0 lead for Trinity.
And Maryland just looks absolutely defeated right now. They're thinking, what happened? These 2 aggressive decks just took us out very quickly.